Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Hi, welcome to Money Talks. My guest today is Lani Renneau, and we're in her fabulous basement commercial kitchen in Mount Pleasant to talk about your business, which you started this year, called Renneau Chocolates and Confections. Yes. So welcome to Money Talks.
Well, thank you.
Lani, I knew you way back when. You worked at the Journal-Times in advertising, and we knew each other briefly, and then you went off and did some other things. But what led you into the chocolate business?
Well, you mentioned I was in advertising. Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing about being in advertising is you meet so many different clients, different types of businesses as you travel with your sales reps.
Sounds like a business meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I was in Rockford, Illinois, one of my sales reps asked, would you come along with me to go get an ad for a little, it was called Sweet Pan Shop. And they were celebrating their 25th anniversary. I'd never heard of them. Mm-hmm. So I said, sure, I'll go with you. And I walked in this store, and it was, I don't even know how to explain it. You talk about, remember the 5 and dimes?
Mm-hmm.
You
Sure,
don't.
sure. No,
But they had just about everything in those stores.
Uh-huh.
This is what her store looked like. It had thousands of items, and there wasn't any order. There wasn't any
pertaining to sweets and pertaining to chocolates.
Pertaining to cake making, chocolate making. There were cake pans. It was called again the Sweet Pan Shop. So she started out with cakes. And then she started with chocolate molds and went downstairs in her lower level, and it was thousands of different molds. For the hobbyists, they weren't professional grade molds, but they were the lesser expensive plastic grade molds. Uh-huh. And then of course she had some of what was called candy melts. And a lot of people think candy melts are chocolate, but I learned now, of course, they're not.
What are they?
They have a chocolate flavor, but they're made with vegetable oil, where your real chocolate is made with cocoa butter.
Okay.
And that makes the big difference in flavor, in texture, mouthfeel, and everything. But I started asking about the molds, and I said, what is this for? How do you do this? And she, of course, loved to tell me about it. Well, I can do this. And so, of course, I dove in. I don't even know how much money I spent, but I had to pick out every mold I liked and bought probably 20 pounds of the chocolate candy melts. And I started to create chocolate candies, bonbons, not truffles. I didn't know about truffles at that point. The bonbons are made with more of a fondant inside, like your buttercreams, things like that. Okay. And I started doing 3-dimensional chocolate, because when chocolate's wet and you put a wet chocolate with a dried hardened chocolate, it acts as a glue. So I made a lot of 3-dimensional buildings, and
You were just doing it for fun, huh?
Yeah, I was just doing it for fun, and I really enjoyed it, and the people I would give these 3-dimensional items to were just, this is unbelievable, wow. And then I started thinking, I wonder what the real, chocolatier does. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started investigating courses either in Chicago or I found Ecole Chocolate Learning Center online.
So I know that you got your professional training in that online course.
I did.
That you didn't have this beautiful kitchen at that time, so you were just learning about chocolate and then experimenting in your own kitchen and doing your assignments in your own kitchen, right?
Definitely. That's exactly how it happened. And it was interesting because I wish I had my own kitchen at the time. I was in transition. I had just gotten a job with the Kenosha News. Mm-hmm. So I was in transition and living in an apartment building as I was doing my studies.
So how long a course was that?
was 3 months. It was, oh, maybe even closer to 4. But it was a lot of hard work. I would get home from work around usually 6 or 7, and I'd be up till after midnight, almost, I'd say 5 nights a week.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what is it that you attained then through that? It's called a...
I became an official chocolatier,
Okay.
and I have a certificate.
Okay.
And there is a next step, which I am really debating on taking. I would love to, but and that would become a master chocolatier. And in order to do that, I have to study under a master chocolatier for a week.
Oh.
And so I have my 2 choices that I've narrowed it down to is either in Italy or in France.
Oh, wow. That'll be exciting. Okay, so now this year you started the business in about May. Let's talk about, well, no, let's not skip over the steps. So when did you put in this kitchen, and why don't you mention some of the things that it contains?
Right, well this is our 2nd year with this lower level completed and the kitchen finished. And we had the health department in every step of the way. I really struggled with, do I want to open retail? Or should I start with the kitchen? Of course, I had no idea the kitchen would cost as much as it did. It was just supposed to be a starting point. And if I really love what I'm doing and there seemed to be a demand, we would go retail.
And by the way, that amount, you've told us that amount for the
Right.
story I did earlier, and this is about a $50,000 kitchen we're
Yes.
sitting in right here. So
Yes.
this is a serious commercial kitchen.
It is, and we had the health department with us every step of the way because nobody wants to go through all of this and then have a health department come and say, oh my
You did
gosh,
something
this
wrong.
isn't to code or,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, to code, you have to have a 3-bin sink.
Oh, yeah.
Have to. That's not an option. So that was one thing. But there's other things. But it came along beautifully. We had a lot of talented people, a lot of family members who are in the trades who did this for us. But again, I really wanted to do retail. My sister and I were hoping to maybe someday open up a business together.
Why don't you explain at this point, you wanted to do retail, but you have certain limits because your kitchen is in your home, right? Why don't you mention that?
Yes, I do. When you have an at-home kitchen, then you can do, I can do as much retail as I want. At first I was told $24,000, which I thought, my goodness.
What do you mean $24,000 a
Dollars
year?
in revenue.
Oh.
In revenue. But that's mainly because when you have an at-home kitchen, they're not really concerned about how much money you make. It's how busy you are and how many people you have to employ to get to those higher dollar levels. But after watching me and watching me work and knowing what I do and how much I charge, they said, no, you don't have a dollar level. Just, I have to make sure if I need to start getting help and we have too many people in this small space, then it becomes an issue.
But you are limited to 25% of your revenue can be wholesale, so
Yes.
therefore you're not going to ever have a big presence
Right.
in the stores, probably.
Right, that's exactly right. I have a small presence and usually it's holiday time.
Yeah, so you're selling more, we'll get to the sales in a minute or two, but so you're selling more directly to people as opposed to putting your product on a shelf in a store and letting
Right.
them find that. You're filling orders is
I-
the nature of your business, right?
Yes, I am. And I do have to be careful as far as making sure that most of my business is weddings. It's corporate planning, maybe lunches, and they want a little treat for everybody at the table. But weddings are my biggest. And I typically don't always have product on hand. So if somebody calls and says, Lani, loved your chocolates, I'm going to a birthday party, would love to give a box. I may or may not have some on hand because I don't operate a retail facility out of my home.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like a store where my neighbors would kill me. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's just not that type of business. But over the holidays, I have had a lot of phone calls and I've been able to say, certainly come on over and grab a box because I do so much production over the holidays.
Yeah, and that's one reason we're doing the show when we're doing it. It's it fits with the season. So let's talk about the chocolates and talk about the various products you have. What are some of your? Why don't you start with the top selling category, whether it's truffles or chocolates or whatever you call it, and just talk about how you make it and kind of go down the line a little bit.
Sure. Well, I think one of my top selling is during holidays. People love turtles.
Oh, yeah.
They love the turtles. And
Why don't you quickly tell the components of a turtle for those who may have forgotten?
the turtles is a chocolate base, and then salted pecans, and if I may name drop, I do only use pecans from Tenuta's in Kenosha
You can
because
name drop.
he has the best, truly the best. And so there's the salted pecan, and then I make a homemade caramel and put the piece of caramel on top of that, and then top it with some more chocolate.
Okay.
And I can't really say that it is my best seller, but it's right up there with the truffles.
Okay. Let's talk about truffles for a second. And I had to have you define it for me. I've heard the term a million times, but what is a truffle exactly?
A truffle is, you want it to be made with good chocolate because it is, I'm going to say 99% chocolate. It could be 100%, but I sometimes roll mine in sugar, which would then make it. So, but a truffle is chocolate, a little bit of butter, cream, and flavoring of your choice. And seriously, the flavors are endless.
So those are the ones you get in the boxes around Christmas time, and you have the chocolate coating, but you bite into it and there's something on the inside.
And
That's
it's all
a truffle?
chocolate, yes. As long as it's chocolate.
Oh.
As long as it's chocolate. Otherwise, it could be a bonbon that
Oh.
has more of a buttercream, flavored butter.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Maybe I'm
cream
getting
in there,
that mixed
fondant
up.
cream. But a truffle is almost 100% chocolate, and it's
Okay.
decadent, and it's fabulous. I would say my most popular flavors are raspberry, champagne, and one that's becoming a big hit is Aztec Orange. It's an orange chocolate with just a hint of chipotle, and you kind of get that kick after it's been in your mouth for just a second. But the flavors with truffles are endless.
You mentioned that you made one, a really interesting one for your mom. Why don't you mention that one?
Oh, the blue cheese.
Yeah, blue cheese.
Yes, blue cheese. My mother loves blue cheese, and she said, well, why don't you try a blue cheese? I'm not a blue cheese lover. So I thought, who's going to like that? But I mixed it with a little raspberry balsamic, and it wasn't bad, but by far not my favorite. But my mother and all of her friends who love blue cheese loved it.
I think I would love that one, actually.
And I was surprised at how many people did. So, so you can think of a flavor, and it can be made. What tastes bad in chocolate?
Yeah. I want to deviate slightly from the products to just a little tiny bit. People may get the wrong idea that it's just so easy. You just melt chocolate and, I could make that. But there's actually some science to it. So without taking a huge amount of time, why don't you mention a couple things that you do in your process, or
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. There is a science. I just did a little educational event at Seabeck Gift Gallery in Kenosha on the educating as far as the difference between good chocolate and candy melts. Good chocolate, when you melt the chocolate, it breaks up the beta crystals. And I won't try to get too technical, but so picture an ice cube. Once it's melted, just sitting on the counter, it's not going to come back up.
All right.
You have to refreeze it.
Right.
Same with good chocolate. Once you melt it, it will not perform that snap. You know how a nice good chocolate makes a snap when you break it and it's really nice and shiny? Until you reconnect those beta crystals that melted when you melted the chocolate. So it's a science. You have to bring it up to, I would say, about 108 degrees to melt it. Then bring it down to the low 80s, and you start adding seed chocolate where the beta crystals haven't been destroyed yet. You put that in and you stir vigorously. I happen to have a tempering machine that does that for me.
Okay.
But it gives it, it cools it down and it agitates it, if you will.
All right.
And then you bring it back up to about 88 degrees, and that's your working temperature.
So now we know what those 4 months of study were all about.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We talked a little bit about turtles. We talked a little bit about truffles. What are some of the other things that are, I guess, some of your main products?
Well, I'm Renneau Chocolates and Confections. So I also do specialty cupcakes. I do a lot of weddings. That's.
What do you mean by a specialty cupcake?
Well, a specialty cupcake, in my mind, is you just go above and beyond. It's not just a plain cupcake, although I'll sell those if somebody wants those. But I practice with flavors because, again, I haven't really found a cupcake, somebody didn't like either. So I buy from a company called Amaretti. They have flavorings, they're condensed flavorings, and I can use that in my chocolates. I can use them in my baked goods, and they're very powerful flavoring. A jar about that big, size of a large jar of vanilla, is about $170.
Oh.
So it's not something that everybody would have in their home.
Yeah.
And the flavors are, again, endless. I can do a chipotle cupcake, a chocolate chipotle cupcake, or champagne cupcakes are very, very popular. And then, of course, you put stuff inside. I kind of play around with some of the things that we can put in the center. And I also do a lot with fondant, which is...
I don't know what that is.
Fondant is, you ever have a wedding cake where it's not just frosting, it's got that harder, almost hard powdered sugar. That's really what it is powdered sugar, Karo syrup. It's a thicker coating. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
And maybe you just didn't notice. But that fondant is basically just that. It is a marshmallows or powdered sugar, Karo syrup, and you just create this mixture and then you knead it so it gets almost like Play-Doh.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can make different shapes. I do cupcakes with daisies on top.
Speaking of daisies on top, I want to just touch briefly on, I'm going to point people toward your website to explore more of your products. We're not going to get to all of them, and we'll certainly put that on the screen before the end of the show. But you do a lot with molds. You have drawers and drawers and drawers of molds in here for shapes. What are some of the shapes that you make chocolates in? Just to name a few.
Well, we have some of my specialty molds, and I say specialty only because of the shape, not necessarily the quality.
All right.
Because I have truffle molds that are commercial molds that pretty much are, I have some in the shape of a baby grand piano.
Oh, wow.
Makes a beautiful chocolate.
Oh.
I have...
you mentioned cream de menthe.
In a frog.
Frog, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that actually wasn't a commercial mold, but because I have so many of the home hobbyist molds that you can actually, buy at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, they have so many more shapes that if somebody came to me and said, Lani, I have a special occasion, it's a bridal shower. Do you have any molds that pertain to bridal showers that we could do truffles in those molds? Well, most of those come in
You do like baby socks or something like that?
Oh, I can do. Oh, yes, definitely. Teddy bears, giraffes, just about anything.
So
wedding cakes.
So the lesson there is just ask because you may have the mold.
Right.
I need to wrap up very quickly here, but just really briefly, how should people get in touch with you? We can include the phone number. Do you want a phone number out there? And obviously we'll mention your website.
Sure.
But your do you deliver? How does it get from your kitchen to their hands?
I deliver for weddings and special events. As far as the retail, again, as I mentioned, I don't have an in and out process because it is in my home. But if somebody does need something and I have it on hand, they come and pick it up.
Okay.
Here at the house.
Yeah, okay. And, well, the prices are on your website, so I guess we don't need to get into that.
Right.
Well, Lani, good luck with the business.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on Money Talks today.
Thank you.
And this stuff looks great. Thanks a lot to Greg Shaver, our producer, and thanks for watching Money Talks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.